On the occasion of the Vietnam Development Partners Forum, the U.S. Agency for International Development USAID is pleased to announce that its country development cooperation strategy for Vietnam was recently approved after consultations with numerous stakeholders. With this strategy, USAID will strengthen the new U.S.-Vietnam Comprehensive Partnership and address fundamental development challenges in order to support Vietnam's continued transformation into a responsible, more inclusive partner. Economic growth, education, HIV and AIDS, avian influence, climate change, dioxin remediation, disability. And as we may know that during the years on, Vietnam has been putting much effort in driving the development of this country in the inclusive growth, and that is also the common thing that USAID Vietnam took into account and put in the 5-year country cooperation development strategy for Vietnam. So what is the strategy that USAID in inclusive growth, and what are the views of the efforts from Vietnam? We will have the answer to discussion with Mr. Joachim Parker, the Mission Director of USAID Vietnam, in our talk show today. So let's say hello with him. Hello, Mr. Parker, and really nice to meet you today. So, Mr. Parker, what is the country development cooperation strategy that has recently been announced, and how does it affect USAID's assistance program in Vietnam?
Well, this is a very important strategy for us. It's a 5-year strategy. It has its parallels in the government of Vietnam's own strategies. It reflects a consensus. This is very important, a consensus within the U.S. government, a consensus between the U.S. government and the government of Vietnam and among other stakeholders in Vietnam as to the priorities for our assistance here for the next 5 years. Coming after the comprehensive partnership announced by our 2 presidents, that's particularly important. It also is very important because it reflects a commitment coming after that comprehensive partnership, a commitment by the U.S. government to engaging robustly in Vietnam for the next 5 years with sustained and even growing levels of assistance at a time when, given Vietnam's great move into the middle income category, some other assistance programs are shrinking or phasing out.
So we know that the goal of new strategy is Vietnam's continued transformation into a responsive and more inclusive partner. So can you explain about the goal and how does USAID define an inclusive partner with Vietnam?
We thought a lot about this goal. We and everyone we talked to over many hours of meetings with various folks. You heard Secretary Kerry on his recent visit talk about our goal for a strong and prosperous and independent Vietnam. And that's what this goal is about. We listened quite a lot to Vietnam's leaders and its people and thought about Vietnam's amazing record over the last decade of growth and transformation. And so our goal, which is Vietnam's continued transformation into a responsible, more inclusive partner, is meant to show our commitment to sustaining, in a way, that transformation. Responsibility is a word that the foreign minister used in last year's Tet party for the diplomatic community, where he talked about Vietnam's aspirations to join more substantially the international community in ways that you've seen announced recently around participating in the peacekeeping operations. And inclusive is also a goal that is shared by both sides. It was announced by our president. And what we mean by that is broader participation across the Vietnamese people in this fantastic growth that's been happening in Vietnam over the last decade or more, and finding ways to include their voices in decisions that are made in Vietnam about its future. So there are many good reasons why we chose this goal.
And under this new strategy, what are the priority areas that USAID will support in Vietnam?
Well, I just mentioned some of the great advantages of working in Vietnam, the relationship that's growing so quickly under the comprehensive partnership, the population and its talents. There are some challenges here that also relate to our priorities for this new assistance. So it's a common consensus within the government of Vietnam and also among development partners that governance is an area where there need to be improvements, both in terms of accountability, but also in the quality, particularly at the provincial level. We'd certainly like to see the economic empowerment of women go further. So we have a goal around governance, which includes not just growth-related issues, but also an aspiration for work on higher education, like we've had on engineering and social work with the involvement of Intel and Cisco, where we know that the potential in Vietnam is great if we can just unlock some of the real energy of youthful professors, like those I met in Ho Chi Minh City and other cities. A second objective we have, sort of to complement this governance-related work, is certain types of capacities, both organizational capacity and individual capacity. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Capacities that will help people take advantage of opportunities. So in our very substantial work that's funded by PEPFAR in HIV/AIDS, we invest a lot in helping people with HIV/AIDS and organizations who work with them in the Ministry of Health. Our work with persons with disabilities, which began in 1989, where we've invested more than $60 million. Climate change is a fantastic example, given Secretary Kerry's emphasis on it and Prime Minister Zung's as well, as an area for cooperation. We would like to work with communities and government to find ways to help contribute to lower emissions of gases, and also ensure that the populations in the south and central parts of the country and also along the Red River Delta have the ability to respond quickly to disaster and engage in farming practices, for example, that reduce risk. We're also excited about our work on the capacity around emerging pandemic threats, issues that look backwards. For example, the Dioxin Project in Da Nang. We're very excited that project, which is a huge endeavor, is on track still for its on-time completion. And we look forward to what was announced by Secretary Kerry, but a little bit lost in the excitement over everything else he was discussing. Our plans are contracting for an environmental assessment in Bien Hoa.
And we know that US and Vietnam has been putting much more effort in the cooperation assistance program over the years. So could you share with us some highlights in this program over the past year of USAID in Vietnam?
Well, since 2000, USAID's invested something like $680 million in Vietnam across a wide variety of programs, some of which we described already. One I mentioned, and where a lot of investment has been, is in HIV/AIDS. There's something like 250,000 people in Vietnam infected with HIV. USAID, the U.S. government, is largely responsible for treatment with antiretrovirals, for example. Thousands of orphans and vulnerable children have benefited under that program as well, and we've tested something like 700,000 people over the years for HIV. I didn't mention, but I'm very proud of a project that works in the Central Highlands with small farmers, mostly ethnic minorities, several thousand of them, helping them develop cocoa as a product, given Vietnam's fantastic chocolate producing potential.
In recent years, Vietnam has been identifying the goal for national development inclusively and sustainably. We have to mention the achievements that made Vietnam well known internationally. On November 2014, Vietnam was selected as member of UNESCO World Heritage Committee. This was an important event which marks the position of Vietnam in the world. In 2014 marks the first time Vietnam was selected as member of UN Human Rights Council with the highest votes. The FDI attraction in the Vietnam's economy in 2014, especially after 4 years, the volume of registered FDI decreased. On December 23, 2014, Statistics Office announced the CPI on December 2014 has a rise on 0.51% compared with November and 6.04% with previous month in 2012. The 8th National Assembly Conference agreed to approve the strategy, a basic and inclusive innovation in education and training. This is the base to put the national education to a new level, meet the requirements of the country. And we know that Vietnam's authority has been putting much more effort in the inclusive growth of Vietnam. So how can you assess this effort from Vietnam?
Well, the Vietnamese people and their government have accomplished an incredible amount, and this has been recognized globally. Vietnam's success towards the Millennium Development Goals of 2015 is almost complete. There's just one area around HIV/AIDS, it's a little bit slow. That's a tremendous accomplishment, particularly over a longer perspective if you look back to the difficult times of the 1980s. So there's a lot of credit due to the government of Vietnam and the entrepreneurial spirit of the people here, the motivation that you see in all areas, both urban and rural. The youth population here is fantastically motivated, entrepreneurial, I think, interested in learning. So the relationship has evolved quite a lot, and I think that's reflected in the new Governance for Inclusive Growth project that was announced by Secretary Kerry. This is a USAID project, which was approved by the Prime Minister several weeks ago at the fastest rate that we've seen for any USAID project, and which includes the participation of no less than 7 different parts of the government.
So what are the challenges that USAID took into account when developing this new strategy in Vietnam?
The advantages outweigh the challenges, but there are some challenges. We are still evolving in our relationship with the government of Vietnam in this positive way, but we still have to earn the trust that some other donors who have been here longer. Sweden recently celebrated the 46th anniversary of their cooperation. So we're gaining trust with Vietnamese governmental institutions. We're still learning how to work well with local organizations. But the challenges are not that great. They're more the development challenges that Vietnam faces around continuing a growth track, finding employment for this large youth population, and dealing with climate change.
And this information has wrapped up our show of today. Thank you so much, Mr. Parker, for spending time with us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and we look forward to 5 years working with Vietnam to continue its successful record.
And that concludes our show of today. Any comments or recommendations, please send an email to showingvietnam@vtc.vn. And for the last minutes of our show, please review the significant growth of Vietnam over the years, as well as Cooperation Assistance Program of USAID in Vietnam. Thank you and see you again.